Normally, I avoid race-related videos on this channel and shy away from the topic because I don't want the comment section to be ablaze with racist remarks.
Is that racist? It feels racist.
But it's not just racists who are curious about the demographics of a location. People of different races want to know where to live so that they can be near the types of restaurants they like, stores they're used to shopping in, and events that cater to their culture. So today we're looking at states with the highest percentage of their population that's considered white. We'll look at where all these people come from and why. Ready? In case you forgot some basic American history, in 1565, the Spanish arrived in St. Augustine, Florida. Then the Mayflower landed in 1620. Of course, there are plenty of other stories involving French explorers and Russians migrating to Alaska and lots of others that get much less attention. But the two major moments in North American colonization history are the arrival of the Mayflower and the Spanish in Florida. Now, some of the locals back then welcomed the settlers, others not so much. But over time, these settlers established control, and what is now known as the United States has been predominantly white ever since. Number 10. Kentucky. Kentucky is extremely white. I mean, just think of all that bluegrass music. Before the European settlers arrived in the late 1600s, Kentucky was inhabited by various Native American tribes, including the Cherokee and Shawnee tribes, among others. These tribes used Kentucky primarily as a hunting ground and didn't establish permanent settlements. But the French, British, and Daniel Boone followers all established a presence in Kentucky in the mid-1700s, quickly turning the majority of the population into a white state. There were loads of conflicts, but to summarize, after the Civil War and up to today, Kentucky has been primarily white. Although there were some African American slaves back in the day, it was classified as Upper South or a border state, and didn't see that many folks of color. If you need more proof, just look at the state's most popular names: Liam, Amelia, Oliver, and Charlotte. 87.5% of Kentucky's population is white. Number 9. North Dakota. Ever since the Civil Rights Movement, organizations and governments have been trying to show how equal and diverse they are. Just look at what North Dakota wrote on their website. Whether you crave the rugged outdoors or thrive in urban settings, you'll find vibrant, diverse communities and the shortest average commute time in the country. Okay, the part about the shortest commute times in the country is I believe, but with a predominantly white population, the diverse communities part is a little harder to believe. Unless by diverse, you mean 3 in a group of 25. Now, I'm sure there are areas more diverse than others, but I chuckled when I read that. Classic case of trying to fit in. Sorry, North Dakota, but 88% of your population being white is far from diverse. Number 8. Iowa. If you didn't know Iowa was very white, then I'd say go visit a county fair for proof. I've been to Iowa a number of times, and let me tell you, it's most definitely a white state. Back in its early days, around the 1840s, the majority of settlers in Iowa came from Scandinavian countries, along with Dutch, German, Irish, Scots, and Welsh immigrants. New Englanders and Quakers started arriving around the same time, and a lot of their descendants are still up there. 89.8% of Iowa's population is considered white. Number 7. Idaho. Idaho has a reputation for being very white, and it's always been that way. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a large majority of settlers were English. Many arrived before statehood because there wasn't much government back then. Most English settlers from their not-so-jolly homeland were being taxed heavily and found the idea of a place with little government appealing. Even though thousands of people migrated to Idaho in recent years due to economic hardships and they have still maintained a very high white population. Today, 90.2% of Idaho's population is white. Number 6. Montana. Coming in strong with the blonde hair and blue eyes crowd, Montana was originally settled by Italians and Germans in Fergus and Park counties. I don't blame them either because there's a lot of beauty and natural resources up there. Many Germans came from North Dakota and Canada. A lot of cattlemen who ended up in Montana were mostly English and Scottish. The dynamic back then was that the English and Scottish worked the cattle, but the owners were typically German. Sheep herders, usually from the British Isles, were also significant despite not being favored by a cattleman. Anyway, it's just so far from the southern border, where migrants in recent years have been coming from other ethnicities. 90.9% of Montana's population is white. Number 5. Wyoming. 5 groups made up the majority of early immigrant settlers in Wyoming: the British, Germans, Italians, Basques, and Greeks. In 1870, immigrants from the British Isles represented about 1/5 of Wyoming's territorial population and over half of the foreign-born population. I mean, the state's nickname is Cowboy State, and that's saying something. Because of its vast open spaces, low population density, and strong cowboy culture, which is celebrated each year at events like Cheyenne Frontier Days, Wyoming attracted early settlers from European countries, but not many since, because it lacks large urban areas. Today, 92% of Wyoming's population is white. Number 4. New Hampshire. This shouldn't surprise anyone who's ever been to New Hampshire. If you live there, you already know. We're talking about a state where people consider Panda Express a form of diversity.
Wow, those are some crispy noodles. Do you see how far that one jumped out of my mouth?
New Hampshire, being part of New England, dates back to the colonial days, mostly settled by British residents. In 1799, they were joined by many Scottish and Irish immigrants. For a long time, New Hampshire also had a lot of French Canadians from Quebec, who came down for the textile mills. Today, 93.7% of New Hampshire's population is considered white. Number 3. West Virginia. West Virginia is a bit strange. I thought they'd be higher on this list because there's very little diversity in West Virginia cities, and even less in the rural areas, mountains, and hollows. It's well known for its rugged landscape, which includes the Appalachian Mountains. It also has a deep history in coal mining, which played a significant role in its economy and heritage. The settlement of present-day West Virginia began in the mid-1700s with Scottish, Irish, and German settlers from Pennsylvania. The Scottish and Irish cultures deeply influenced the state, especially in folk music. Today, 94.4% of West Virginia's population is identified as white. Number 2. Maine. If you've ever been to New England, you're probably not surprised, especially when it comes to Maine. As with the other states to the far north, it's cold. There's just not a lot of urban life, and they just don't have the draw of many of America's other bustling cities. If you look at Maine's largest city, Portland, they have less than 70,000 residents. The entire metro area has about 562,000 people. Portland, Maine's white population is 82.3%, which is pretty high for a single city. The Pine Tree State has a population that is 95.4% white. Now, before we get to number 1, if you've been paying attention, most of these states are to the far north, with the exception of Kentucky and West Virginia. And every one of them is adjacent to another predominantly white state, except for Iowa, which shows us that there's a large concentration of white folks in these regions as a whole. Number 1, Vermont. Look at that. New England has 3 states in the top 4 on this list. Remember everything I said about New Hampshire? Well, it's the same in Vermont. They're right next to each other and always show up close on all kinds of lists, whether it's crime stats, school grades, or economies. They're so similar they almost could be one state. In fact, many people get confused as to which one is which because they look so similar in shape. But just remember that Vermont looks like a V. Like New Hampshire, Vermont was settled by the English, Irish, and Scottish, with a fair share of French Canadians from Quebec. Today, 95.6% of Vermont's population is white. If you're still wondering why all these states are so white, for the majority of them, they are less urbanized, and there was no pull to these states in more recent years. There were not as many jobs, history, heritage, and culture to attract minority populations here. Simply put, people like being around others with the same culture and background, and they tend to migrate where there's more people like them. Alright, that wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something in the process. If I were to do another one of these types of videos, what race, culture, or religion should I cover next? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.